Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Bonbosher, and today we're going to make a nice hollow pipe type sounding FM synth in Reason with the Thor Polysonic Synthesizer. And the loop that you just heard was something I made just so you give an idea of what we're going to make. So let's get started, shall we? Alright, we got a new document here already opened up. And in the new document I did copy and paste the notes from the previous project over to here just for time's sake. But let's get back into the rack here. Now as you can see I got a Thor here, but what we're going to do in our new rack is we're just going to reset the device, the whole thing. So you can just right click in here, create a combinator, and you got a combinator here. That's what you want first. And then let's start off with a Thor Polysonic Synthesizer. Click to show the programmer, and make sure to right click and reset the device or initialize the patch depending on what version of Reason you're using. And we're going to set the keyboard mode from polyphonic to mono legato. So that way there's no envelopes triggering when we're playing a note, and other than the amp envelope and the filter envelope, but it doesn't impact as far as sounds layering on top of each other. The envelopes don't re-trigger, and so yeah, that's what we want. Now what we're going to do here is change the first oscillator from an analog oscillator to an FM pair. And I have talked about what an FM pair oscillator does in previous tutorials, but one more time, basically the carrier and the modulator are frequencies, sine waves, and they all the carrier gets modulated by the mod carrier or the mod wave here, and what it does is it creates sidebands. And so it modulates the frequency, and so that's why we can create some really cool sounds with the FM pair. I talk a little bit more in detail about it in other tutorials, so be sure to kind of go through the Reason tutorials and check them out. But we're going to set the carrier frequency to 3 and then the modulator to 12. So they're nice even numbers, but this is completely up to taste. Whatever works for you is what works best. There are no right or wrong answers here. Alright, set this to octave 2, a little bit lower, and we're going to set the frequency modulation amount to 81, and this dictates the amplitude of the modulation that we're doing. Alright, perfect. Now, we're going to make sure that the first oscillator is activated to filter 1, and then we're going to keep filter 1 at a low pass 24 type 2 low pass filter here. We're going to set the frequency to about 4.64 kilohertz. So you can always hold shift, click and drag. And then set the resonance to 0. And when it comes to the filter envelope amount, I turn it down to 0 for this particular patch, but that's up to you. Maybe you can find something new. So let's take a listen to what we have so far. Yeah, really dope, right? Super dope. Definitely like UK grime. No, nothing like UK grime. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create another oscillator here. It's going to be an analog sine wave. So it starts off at a sawtooth. We're going to change it to the sine wave. We're going to change it to octave 3. And we're going to activate it to the first filter here. Let's take a quick listen. A little more beef in there on the undertones there. But we're going to create another oscillator, oscillator 3. We're going to make an FM pair here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set the carrier to 3 again. And we're going to set the modulator to 12. And we're going to keep the octave at 4. And we're going to set this FM amount to 78. 78. Perfect. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the mixer here, and we're going to essentially balance out the levels of each oscillator because I want more of one than the other. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the oscillator 3 level to negative 5.4 decibels because this is just more of an overtone than anything else, since it has essentially the same frequencies, just a little bit less FM happening on oscillator 1. Cool. Alright, so we're going to go to the amp envelope next, we're going to set the attack to 9.0 milliseconds so it doesn't click when it triggers. Set the decay to about 4.35 seconds, or you just leave it at its default. And set this, excuse me, the sustain to about negative 3.0 decibels. Again, completely up to you, more or less all the way up, except for not. And then the release of the amp envelope will be at about 761 milliseconds, a nice gradual tail after each triggered note. We're going to activate the chorus as well. And then we're going to set the delay to about 12.1 milliseconds. And we're going to set the feedback to 0, or the default. And then we're going to set the rate at about 0.66 hertz. It's exactly its default. I just left it alone, and I just activated it, and that's how we do it. So let's take a listen real quick. What do we got? So it's getting there. It's not quite there, but we're getting there. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go, and we're going to add a unison. And we're going to right-click, and we're going to create on the effects here, right click on the Thor, create a unison. We're going to detune this to the amount of 88, so it's going to be really detuned, a little dissonant, but not too much. And then the dry wet we'll keep at 127. The voices I do believe I kept at 16, and let's take a quick listen to what we got. So yeah, that's not bad. That is not bad at all. Now, when it comes to the chorus back here, I did leave it more or less the same. I did turn down the dry wet in the previous patch. I forgot to mention that, to about 12 to 14, but that's completely up to you. But next what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the unison here, and we're going to right click on it, and we're going to create another effect. It's going to be a chorus flanger, CF101. We're going to set the delay all the way to 127, so that means when it gets chorused and flanged, if you will, flanger, it will space out the waves themselves and create a nice comb tooth effect as far as what the wave represents. But then what we're going to do is we're going to set the feedback to positive 9, so just slightly over the top there, and the rate at about 40. I kept it at its default, and the mod amount 64. And again, these are completely up to you. Next and last thing we're going to do is create a reverb. RV7000 Mark II. We're going to do click to show the remote programmer, and this algorithm is very up to taste. This thing right here is all up to you. The sound is there. We just got to kind of dial it in. So for the sound that I made in the tutorial, it's dry wet at 22. Oh, hold shift. Decay is at about 82 default, and the high frequency damp is at 28. So I didn't really mess with much. I just kind of threw on some stuff because the sound is there. So let's take a listen. And there you have it. Just like that, we just made a nice UK grime type-esque, doesn't have to be UK grime, nice hollow pipe sounding, like metal pipe sounding FM synth in Reason with the Thor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this combi patch. In the desktop is ABB hollow pipe tutorial. Oops. That'll do it. And then I will leave it available for you in the description of the video. And you can go download it and experiment all you want with it for yourself. Click to save, bam. And that is all for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you learned something. This patch is actually pretty powerful, and it's very simple, actually. So it's really not too bad, and you can always customize it exactly how you want. But thank you again, really appreciate it, and hope you watch my other tutorials and my listen to my music, and we'll see you next time.